Three, two, one, and we're live. My name is Leah Heimuli, and this is another episode of the Village Made podcast. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, C4 Designs, for keeping me fitted. C4 Designs is a clothing company on a mission to keep our beautiful Polynesian culture alive. Use code VMP15 at checkout to get 15% off discount on all purchases. C4DZYNZ.com. Man, today's a family affair.
Yes, it is.
So we got Leah Heimuli here, and how I got this idea was I did a podcast a couple weeks back, and I was talking to Tema Lawson, and she had mentioned that she was learning tennis or taking tennis lessons. Sorry, and she was on the court next to you. And you and your dad were practicing, and so once she mentioned your name, then I was like, you know what, that's a good idea.
Why not? Yeah.
And so I reached out to you, and I like, hey, you want to come on the podcast?
Yes.
And so here we are, man.
Yeah, excited
I appreciate
to be here.
it. Yep. Thank you for coming. I guess let's just get straight into it. So, can you tell the story of your names, the meaning of your names, and who named you?
Yep. So my first name is Leah, and it's actually a Bible name. And my parents love the Polynesian, like super long, crazy names with all the vowels, but they wanted something kind of more basic that still sounded kind of Polynesian. And so that's how I got my first name, and they both decided on it and named me Leah, even though people still sometimes mispronounce it, so it's pretty fun. But and then Heimuli, after talking to my dad, means lost on the mainland or a foreign land, just kind of interesting. And then my mom's maiden name is Kukihiko, and ku in Hawaii means to stand, and ahiko means ancestry. So basically just sticking to your Hawaiian roots.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so your mom is from Hawaii. Do you know where in Hawaii? Or
from Maui, the Maui side. Yeah. So it's kind of fun having both like the Tongan side and the Hawaiian side. It's like that kind of like shapes me. And so it's always fun to go back and visit all the time. But
cool. And then you want to talk about your parents or who your parents are?
Yeah. So
and then I guess the relation between me and you and our parents.
Yes. How we're related. Yeah. So my dad is Hema Heimuli, and we're related because he's your uncle, and he's and my mom is Mari Heimuli, Mari Kukihiko, and they met at BYU, and Feao is your dad, and he's the older brother of my dad. And so have a lot of fun and family love here, I guess. Nice.
So where were you born and raised?
I was born in Highland, Utah. And I basically was there my whole entire life. For 1 year as a family, when I was younger, we moved to Kuwait in the Middle East for a year for my dad's job. But other than that, we've just been in Highland, Utah.
How old were you when you moved to Kuwait?
I was 7 when we moved to Kuwait.
Do you have any memories of Kuwait?
Yeah. It was a very interesting experience, very different from America. It made me appreciate kind of like structure and just having rules, because I remember one experience, like my mom was driving to the supermarket and someone just like parked their car in the middle of the road just to like go in and grab something. But I remember schooling was kind of like junior high here in America, where I was learning like French and Arabic, and there was English and like PE classes, but I don't know any of those languages anymore. Not bilingual or trilingual, but it was a really cool experience to kind of see also like religion. Like I remember I'm LDS, but over there it was super small. Like the community was really small, but they were all just super nice and welcoming people. But
jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
What was the weather? Was it as hot, or most people have that in their mind of the Middle East being really hot? Was it that hot?
It was so hot. I remember it was like, man, not having AC sometimes was brutal, and you're just like sweating all the time. And if you would play sports or something during the day, good luck. Usually people would just try to do them later. I remember I'd take tennis lessons like at night under the lights because it was just so hot during the day that no one wanted to be out there. So kind of crazy.
Wow. That's cool. You got to experience that and, you know, kind of have that experience in your background. So being raised in Highland, what was that experience like for you?
It was a good experience. I feel like the culture there, there's a lot of very wealthy people in the area, like Highland Alpine area. And I remember, so education was really valued there, getting like really good grades and stuff, but there isn't a lot of diversity there. I had a lot of people that have like questioned like, what ethnicity are you, like, and I'm always like Polynesian, and they're like, oh wait, what island? Or I don't know, like people just don't understand. It's kind of crazy. So I just would stick with like Hawaiian because Tongan is like too confusing for people. Right. Yeah. But it was good because it was competitive like academically, and like kind of helped because sometimes it's, I think, like culturally for Polynesians, it's kind of like, oh, you're only good at sports kind of. So I think it was good to kind of balance that and learn like good study habits like from a young age. But I think it positively helped kind of shape who I am today.
Right. And was it enforced, I guess, in the home or taught that education is important?
Yes.
From your parents?
Yeah. So my parents actually have values that they enforce, and so one of them is knowledge and like education, and even from Grandpa Penny, my dad's dad, when he came to the United States, and every family gathering, he always talks about the importance of education and getting a college degree just because of the opportunities that you're able to receive. And so in the home, it always was kind of expected to like try your best, and like if maybe that's not an A or whatever, that's okay because you're doing your best, but you should be shooting for like to get a college education and to be able to have those opportunities available to you. But yes, in the home, like definitely good pressure to get good grades from the parents.
And growing up, was sports also important?
Yeah. Actually, my parents, before they had any kids, because I'm the oldest of 5 and all of us play a sport, but my parents wanted all their children to play a sport because there's something about sports. You learn so many life lessons throughout them, and it's hard to learn them in other ways besides sports. Like, so like hard work and like dedication and learning to lose with grace and being like humble and respectful. Like there's so many different things. And so my parents always wanted us to kind of have that, and maybe like not play maybe in college sometimes, but just to learn that when you're younger so you can kind of be more well balanced than just kind of really strong in one aspect of life, have it be more holistic. But yep.
Dang, that's encouraging, especially for, you know, the youth coming up. I know you mentioned earlier about Polynesians, or, you know, growing up where you're from, like where you grew up, that Polynesians, you had mentioned that we are bigger, or we are more than just sports people. In talking about sports and talking about education, can you talk about how maybe your dad and what, I know the education that they got, can you speak on the education that your parents got, and then also speak on maybe like living up to the expectations of your parents, and then also the last name, the Heimuli last name?
Okay, so my dad was the first out of all of his siblings to get a college degree, and he actually played football in order to get so he was on scholarship, and that's kind of how he was able to like pay for school and have that kind of be his opportunity, and was able to get a master's too at BYU because of that. and that's how he met my mom at BYU. And she graduated in IS because who she was working for, they like would pay for her school if she.
IS is International Studies?
Information systems.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my dad was more in like human resources. I can't remember what it was called back then, but kind of that general area that he's still in today. And also Uncle Lake was at BYU also. He played football there too, and he was a huge inspiration to my dad. Like my dad wouldn't have been in football or had any of those kind of resources or opportunities if he didn't follow in Lake's footsteps. But Lake didn't graduate, but he was an amazing athlete. And so that is like the Heimuli name kind of at BYU. And I remember even growing up in like high school, people would see my last name and be like, oh, like, who's your dad? And it was cool kind of having that like pride where everyone kind of knew who he was. But they're big kind of footsteps to follow in. But I think if I was a boy and was playing football, it maybe would be more difficult to kind of live up to that name and kind of those aspects of things. But it's cool because a lot of the in the athletic department, a lot of my dad's friends who played on the team are actually still there, and so it's nice because they know me and they like love my family. But I think it's like positive kind of pressure to like live up to the expectation, because tennis is very different, and I'm like my own person, and I kind of use it as like motivation to kind of still like do well and continue to like proudly represent the name, I guess. Yeah. But I think it's good, but some people could take it negatively, I guess.
Right. And can you speak on how you got into tennis? Was it something that you enjoyed growing up, or was it kind of forced on you maybe by your dad?
Yeah. Yeah, so I played like a bunch of different sports when I was younger, but my dad wanted me to play a more like feminine sport where like, because some like female sports you kind of have to play more like a guy to be really successful. And so he picked tennis, even though we knew nothing about tennis. So we were going in completely blind, and there's not a lot of polys in tennis either. It's not a popular sport with them. But I made the decision in junior high. I think I was 12, because I was playing soccer and tennis, and my parents were like, you got to pick one to kind of specialize in. And I picked tennis. Sometimes regret it, but most of the time I'm really grateful I stuck with it. But and it has been a journey for sure. My dad has been my coach, and we've realized that tennis is super expensive. We didn't realize how pricey it was until we got into it. With the travel and the rackets and like all of those things, you just don't realize it. But I kind of got into tennis because I wanted to play a sport, and then also I liked kind of the individuality of it, because I'm in charge and responsible for if I like win or lose. And so it's good, like you're kind of depressed if you lose, but if you win, it's like amazing because you know that it was up to you. So it's been like a really good learning experience for sure.
And so you played tennis throughout high school?
Yes, I played tennis through high school. I played all 4 years at Lone Peak. We won state 3 out of the 4 years, which is really
state
fun.
Champs?
Yeah, state champs. Before I kind of, well, I always knew that I wanted to get a college education, and knowing that my parents couldn't like pay for me to get an education, and not wanting to get in like a ton of student debt or anything, sports was kind of my ticket to get an education. So that was kind of my goal growing up, was to like train hard and be like ranked high enough so that coaches would come to me and ask if I wanted to play at a college university. And
what were some of the opportunities that you got out of high school to go to college? playing tennis?
Yeah. So I was able to. There was a lot of different universities in the state that wanted me, and a lot on the West Coast. But I kind of am a homebody. Like, I never really thought I would leave the home, and I just wanted to stay in the state. I grew up a Cougar, so I always wanted to go to BYU, but when it came down to it and I met with the coach, I didn't really love the culture that she had my freshman year, and I didn't really want to be part of that because I knew that I wanted to get better academically to get my education, but also through tennis, I didn't want it just to be like an easy ride. I still wanted to be able to have an opportunity with a coach to improve and get better. And actually at state my senior year, one of my old kind of tennis coaches that I saw sometimes talked to my parents about BYU Hawaii. Because they had talked to him about BYU, and we weren't totally like thrilled of that idea just because of the coach. But he said, "What about BYU Hawaii?" And so we looked into it. I didn't even know there was a program in Hawaii. And then I looked at all their stats, and they were amazing, national champions. And that's how I got to kind of know Dave Porter, who actually became my coach at BYU Hawaii my freshman year, their last year of athletics. And so it was crazy. Hawaii was amazing. It was paradise, and then it also was fun, like being on that team. But it was an awesome experience.
Was there maybe, like a culture shock when you went out to Hawaii?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, Highland and like Lone Peak probably has like 2% diversity. I think there's like a few black kids, and the rest are like polys. But going to Hawaii was, yeah, big culture shock at first, but it was really awesome to kind of see the different languages and how people saw things and viewed things. And on my team, even my tennis team, most of the girls on the team were Asian, from China, Malaysia, or Korea. And so I got to learn more about Asian culture, and it's just crazy the experiences and opportunities that I was able to have.
And so what was college life like, trying to balance education and being, the best tennis player that you can be? Was that a difficult balance, or was it something that you kind of found that was an easy transition for you?
Yeah, I think that it just depends on how much you care about like your education. Kind of like, I know a lot of people, especially go to BYU Hawaii, and they will say they'll take online classes, but then when it comes down to it, they're always at the beach and don't even care. But I think kind of how I grew up, I always knew that I would be diligent, and I would go with my teammates and friends like to the library. Like, we'd hang out at the library and do homework, but then we'd also like balance having that time. And I think too, growing up, that was one of the values that my family had, is balance, to be able to enjoy like working hard, but also be able to like enjoy having time with friends, or like going out and balancing it.
Yeah. So how do you handle the pressure of maybe the game in the middle of your match, or if you get maybe if you get a call that's not going your way, or you make an error? How do you handle that?
Yeah. Okay. So mentally, or tennis is very mental. I've learned over the years, especially in college, I've come to realize that it's a lot more mental than I thought. And when you're out on that court, there's only a few things that you can control. And so I've learned through my tennis career that you only can focus on what you can't control. So like, if the umpire overrules you on a call, or if someone like hooks you and calls the ball out when that was in, and you can't do any, you can ask them, but then at the end of the day, like, you got to just move on, or else if you let that that negativity like linger, then it it can be detrimental to the rest of your game. And I think that applies to life too. Like if you're not able to move on and let go of tense moments and people, then it can negatively impact your life.
Was it your intention to stay at BYU Hawaii all 4 years? Because you had mentioned that they cut the program right after your 1 year there.
Yeah. Well, when I talked to Porter, he had told me that the program was ending. So you already knew that. Yeah. So going into it, I knew that my freshman year, that's all I'd have at BYU Hawaii. And there's a lot of what ifs. Like I've had a lot of people ask me, what if it stayed for all 4 years? And I don't know, maybe I would have stayed because the culture and everything, I just thrived there and it was super fun. But I went in knowing that I had to go somewhere else if I wanted to continue my tennis collegiate career. And actually the U offered me, and so that's why I went to, so I signed the U letter of intent like when I was at BYU Hawaii. It was kind of funny, and I was planning to be there for the rest of my collegiate career, and then plans changed, and now I'm at BYU for the rest of my time.
So what was your experience at Utah like? And I guess just being a Cougar your whole life and going to Utah, was that easy for you to accept, or are you just like, you know what, it is what it is?
Man, I kind of struggled with it at first just because I grew up always rooting for the Cougs to win, and then all of a sudden being a U and like throwing up the U, like it was kind of a weird transition, but it was the best opportunity that I had after BYU Hawaii, and I had decided that being part of Pac-12 would be more important than other universities that were maybe at like sea level or something, because you train differently versus altitude and sea level. But I had a great experience at being part of Pac-12. It was strange. The classes were definitely harder because I was trying to be part of their business program there. I was part of their business scholars, and but overall it was a good experience. But it did take me some time to kind of adjust to wearing red, and my parents supported me, but I think secretly they always were like kind of on the fence about it, but they just were happy that I was happy.
So how long were you at Utah for?
I was at Utah for 2 years. Okay. And so I redshirted 1 year there because I hurt my wrist. But I still was able to travel with the team, and so I learned a ton because BYU Hawaii was Division II and Pac-12 was D1, and it's different going from D1 to D2, and so I learned a lot and watched some like good players and still was able to practice, which was awesome, and I have good memories with those girls. And then the next year I was able to play, and that was a good experience. I got to play with my old doubles partner from junior tournaments, actually, so that was fun being on a team with her again, and just learning how to play and compete in different atmospheres was exciting, nerve-wracking, and exciting at the same time.
So what year are you here at BYU now?
I am a redshirt junior.
Dang. No. So how did all this COVID affect your junior year, or
yeah,
is tennis season right now at this time, or is it in the fall, or?
Yeah, so tennis we have like some tournaments in the fall that are just individual, but spring or winter, BYU calls it, is like our season. And so we had just finished all of our non-conference matches. And so we were about like halfway through our season when COVID hit. And it was really devastating. It was hard because I feel like as a team, it was my first year at BYU. And I was kind of nervous because I was playing, last year I was at a rivalry team, and I didn't know how welcoming they would be to me, but we're like a family off and on the court, which is so fun. And so it was hard, but I was grateful for the opportunities that we had as a team before all of the craziness happened. And I'm excited for the next few years with them.
I know you had mentioned that they offered you a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Was it the NCAA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the NCAA offered everyone a year of eligibility back because of the craziness of COVID. And so so I technically could have I have 2 years of eligibility left. So that just is exciting, kind of crazy. Never thought
it never happened before.
Yeah. There's a lot of changes and people are trying to adjust to the new problems and new opportunities at this time. But I'm excited and I'm just grateful it wasn't my senior year because that was tough for the seniors. We actually did a drive-by for their senior day, and the whole team, we like got in cars and we had signs and we gave them like a little gift because they weren't able to play. So it was fun.
I know that. Mm-hmm. Jeez. And speaking, going back to education, are you almost done with school?
Yeah. So I'm majoring in sociology and then I'm minoring in business. And so I have just a year left before I graduate with all my credits. So by this time next year, hopefully I'll be done. Yeah.
And do you already have plans after college? Maybe education-wise or tennis-wise?
Well, since I have another year of eligibility, I'm going to apply to get a master's. Nice. So I can hopefully play and get more schooling, because more school is better than no school. And I am thinking about going into the MBA program, but we'll see. There's still so much that can happen within that time. And tennis-wise, I don't know, actually. I'm just planning on finishing out college.
Would you like to go pro? Is that something that you've thought about maybe?
It would be amazing. There's not a lot of Polynesians in tennis, so I think it's kind of cool to have the opportunity. I know more Polynesians in tennis. Younger girls have gotten more involved by seeing me, and there's another girl at Utah State being more involved in sports and seeing that as an option. I think sometimes with Polynesians, we stick to what we're good at instead of branching out to new opportunities, because there's so many options and to use our creativity. But I think it'd be amazing to go pro. It's hard and I'd have to get a lot of sponsors because it ain't cheap. But if that's an option after my senior year, then I probably would go for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, we'll see. But
and then just going off of what you spoke of, you and another female at Utah State, you said, are the only Polynesians, I guess?
Yeah.
Man, do you feel like being the only females at this time, what am I trying to say? Like, do you feel like you like a trailblazer, I guess, in a sense? Or do you want to be like that person that, paves the way for others and be like, if she can do it, I can do it as well?
Yeah. I think it's kind of tough being a trailblazer. I think I accept it because there's so few Polynesian women in tennis. But I think it's an awesome opportunity, and I think girls shouldn't be limited to what they want to do just by only doing having only like 3 sports they can play. Like there's so many options that we have, but I appreciate what people have done before. Like my dad has really inspired me as an athlete and in balancing education, but also I think I would love to be an example to others if they want it.
What are some stereotypes maybe of Polynesian women? I know you kind of touched on that, but what are some that you feel are some stereotypes of Polynesian women?
Some stereotypes I would think are that Polynesian women typically only play like volleyball or softball. So that's been kind of interesting being in another sport. I know a lot of Polynesians that I've talked to are always confused when they figure out I play tennis instead of another sport. Like I'm a college athlete, but it's a different thing just because it's new and it's kind of different. And so that, not that that's a bad thing because we're good at those sports, but I think women should be open to looking at other options if they want to.
Right. Mm-hmm. And for you, what do you love most about yourself?
What I love most about myself is my ability to be empathetic. I like talking to different people and hearing their stories and be able to kind of feel the emotions that they feel, and so I can kind of connect on that level with them. But that's probably my favorite quality about myself.
Nice. So for you, what is your definition of a strong woman? And do you consider yourself a strong woman?
I think I'm a strong woman, but I think that I can definitely get stronger. There's always room for improvement. But I would say a strong woman is someone who has a good understanding of who she is, like has a good self-identity, and is able to go through trials and be stronger because of it, and really grow from situations and be able to give to others and not need a lot in return. And I think it's tough to be a strong. I would say my mom is probably a strong woman. Right. If I had to think of someone who is just very Christ-like and gives so much and doesn't want a lot in return. So I'm very lucky that she's in my life.
Shout out to your mom.
Yeah.
To Mari.
Thank you,
Mom. As Polynesians, what are some things we have to unlearn, you think?
Some things I think that we need to unlearn as Polynesians is, I think sometimes there's a lot of negative pressure to do things because just because everyone else is doing it. I know that sometimes I've felt the need to sometimes struggling with my identity as like living in America and then also having that Tongan heritage and my Hawaiian, kind of figuring out where I fit in, and like your parents did things a certain way, but how you're living, it's a different time and culture. And so kind of balancing that and kind of figuring out who you are as an individual is difficult at times. And so sometimes you have to appreciate what your parents taught you, but you don't have to live it exactly the way and do it exactly the way that they did it to be successful and to thrive in this culture.
For you, what do you love most about being Tongan and Hawaiian or Polynesian in general?
Yeah, I love the welcoming culture that we have. We just love everyone, and we love so many things about others. We just kind of take them as they are and we welcome them in. Sometimes I kind of struggle with that kind of culture with the family, because sometimes I feel like we welcome strangers more than the family at times. Just kidding. But I think I appreciate, I love that about the Polynesian culture, and everyone, like all my friends that go to like the Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii, they just love also the pride that we have in being who we are and just sharing that with the world.
As a people, Polynesians, what do we have to offer the world? Or what can the world learn from us as Polynesians?
I think the Polynesian people are very different than any other culture out there. And I think that we limit ourselves sometimes by not reaching for higher goals or seeing ourselves in those big positions that other people are in, by kind of being satisfied with doing basic work or things that everyone else does, kind of like those stereotypes of, even in college, I've been able to notice that the stereotype of Polynesians sometimes is that we're really good at sports, and then we kind of just float through college, and then once college is over, then it's like, oh crap, like I don't know, what job am I gonna get, what's my future like? But I think if we're able to kind of go after what we think and kind of be more bold in the counsel that we give, or even the opportunities we want to go after, then we can really accomplish anything. It's just up to our imagination. So
amen.
Yeah.
Preach. I like that. So for you, speaking on these big, bold dreams, what does the future hold for you? Or what kind of life do you see yourself living, with the big dreams that you have?
From seeing kind of the culture that my parents have set, I've always wanted to graduate from college, and now hopefully can get a master's too, just to get more education. And I've been able to notice my life compared to some other Polynesian lifestyles, where we were able to have a nice home, and we don't have to have like a ton of family members living with us at one time. But it's kind of motivated me. My parents have always pushed me to push myself in ways that I sometimes am uncomfortable or don't love to be in, but to strive to continue to look for opportunities to grow my talents, like tennis wise. Like if I could go pro, that would be amazing. I don't know if that's in the cards for me, but or just to help people in other aspects of my life.
So I mentioned earlier, when you first came in, that there's up at Lone Peak, the high school, they have a Polynesian club, and that, well, I guess we both know the teacher there, or
Mm-hmm.
and I guess for those students who are in the Polynesian club,
Yeah.
not only at Lone Peak, but maybe other high schools who are still trying to find themselves, and coming up from your experiences in high school and trying to figure yourself out as a Polynesian, like you mentioned, what advice would you give to them, or what would something that you've learned or experienced that you'd want to pass on to them?
Ooh, that one's tough. I would say probably to embrace your culture, like understand that it's not bad to be different, because you're definitely a minority in that situation, but there's good and bad things about all cultures, and I think it's important to kind of combine those good things and try to not be afraid to hit the stereotypes. I know sometimes I've been worried about people thinking of me in the negative terms of Polynesian kind of stereotypes sometimes, like being like a dumb jock or whatever, but just to be confident with yourself and embrace your culture.
Amazing. So, yeah. That's cool. And for those Polynesians that are coming up, maybe thinking about tennis, what advice would you give to them, or what would you say to them about maybe the pros, definitely the pros of tennis?
It's a tough journey, but I think all the experiences that I've had and the people that I've met have all been worth it. And I think the biggest thing would probably be mentally just to believe in yourself throughout the whole entire process. There were definitely low points in my college career and just tennis in general. And if you're able to just kind of stay on top of that and know that there's going to be better times, then all the practice, all the blood, sweat, and tears is worth it.
How is it having your dad as like a tennis coach? I mean, a dad coach.
Yeah.
That balance of him being your dad and a coach.
Sometimes it was hard, definitely growing up, to separate the dad and the coach at home. But I owe so much to him growing up, because we didn't know anything about tennis. He would YouTube different strokes, spend like hours on YouTube. He'd read books to kind of figure out like how to how to hold the racket the right way. And in our house, we had downstairs, we set up like this golf net, and we had this wooden board that he'd bounce balls on, and I'd hit it into the net to work on my form. So like he was always innovating and coming up with all these new ideas to help me out. And he pushed me before I kind of realized what path I wanted to take and what I wanted to do. But there were definitely some tough days with him caring a little too much. But I think if I didn't have him as my coach, I wouldn't be where I was at, because as a parent, I think they care about you the most. And so I'm grateful for all the time and hours that he still continues to put into making me a better tennis player.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your tennis idol? Do you have a tennis idol?
I love Roger Federer. I think he is just the best, just classy kind of in how he acts on the court, and also just his game is really pretty to watch. Just no nonsense, humble, and kind of just take care of business. Like growing up, my parents always were like, you should not tell people how good you are. Like people should talk to each other and they should say how good you are. Yeah. And so I think he's been like even though he's like a guy and has a one-hand backhand and I don't have one of those, I've always really respected and admired him. And
do you have a favorite female athlete?
I really like Andreescu. She's from Canada. And I love her game, like just her fight and her focus is really kind of uplifting and encouraging as a tennis player. And she's young too, so it's kind of fun to see kind of the younger generation that's kind of rising up and maybe win more Grand Slams.
And did you see that, maybe you want to say last year, the Samoan girl at the Australian Open?
Yes.
Was it the Australian Open?
Yes, I think so.
That was amazing, right?
Yeah,
to see another Polynesian?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool to see that and see them doing well.
Did you watch her game or her matches or any of her things?
I didn't see a ton of it. So I just haven't seen her as much. Yeah. But yeah, it's Polynesians are so athletic. Like honestly, I feel like we could play any sport, but we just choose different things. So,
gotcha. Well, I got a few questions just to wrap this up, just to get to know you a little more. And so I guess the first things that comes to your mind, just go for it. What takes up too much of your time?
Probably watching movies. That's like my guilty pleasure. I sometimes will even go to like the movie theater alone. If no one will go with me, I will go watch movies. So during this time, a lot of Netflix.
What's
and
your
Disney
favorite
Plus.
Movie?
Man, that's tough. I really liked The Upside with Kevin Hart. Yeah, it's kind of a funny one, but that's probably one of my favorites right now.
What do you wish you knew more about?
Man, I wish I knew more about. I wish I knew more about. I wish I could tell my past self kind of the potential that everyone has and that like I have too, because I think I am like my worst critic a lot of times, but sometimes I'm not like my best cheerleader. Like it's easier to look at all the negative things sometimes instead of understand that you're doing okay. So I wish I just knew that to like appreciate who I am more and like love myself, I guess.
Wow, That's cool. What or who inspires you?
I would say my parents inspire me. I know I've said that like a lot, but I'm really grateful for like the different values and kind of things that they've taught me throughout my life, because I think I'm a much better person because of it. And sometimes in the home, I definitely would like roll my eyes and just kind of be like, you say this every single day. But after leaving the house, I realized how important all those values and things are. And so I'm just grateful for who they are. And
I guess just going off of being an inspiration, you want to talk about your brothers? I mean, they also are
Mm-hmm.
playing tennis as well, right?
Yeah. So my brother Micah, he is 19, and he just got back from his mission from Barbados, and he played tennis with me. I kind of feel bad because he got into tennis because of me, because I needed a hitting partner, because my dad can only feed. He can't, I'm sorry, Dad, but you can't run out on the court. Like, it's not the same anymore. But so Micah would like hit with me, and so he played tennis throughout his like high school career before heading out on his mission. Jonah, my other brother, who is 16, he plays football.
So he went the football route.
Yeah, he went football. He wanted nothing to do with tennis, being dragged around to all those tournaments.
Did he try it, or did your parents get him into tennis at first? Or
no, he always was just like, what they're going through, I do not want to do that. And so he always wanted to do that. And then Hannah does soccer, and Eli also does soccer. But yeah, my brothers are awesome. They're all taller than me, basically, except for the youngest one, but he's gaining on me. And they are hard workers and are just spiritual giants, and they are a huge inspiration to me too.
What's your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite book would probably be Edenbrook. It's like a older kind of like Pride and Prejudice kind of time book that I like to read just to kind of escape.
Yeah. What are some things you had to unlearn?
I think I had to unlearn. My parents actually growing up were super like whenever we leave, we like always give each other like a kiss on the cheek and a hug to say goodbye. But I think I had to unlearn being really negative with myself, because sometimes I think even like with my dad as a coach, he was just a perfectionist, and so I kind of became a perfectionist too, and I think everyone secretly kind of is, but I think unlearning to remove the negativity from like sports or like from whatever you're doing at that time to your like personal life is really important, because if you keep pounding yourself down, then you can't ever be able to rise up again and like be able to reach whatever you're supposed to reach. So I think unlearning how to be okay with problems and be able just to learn from it and be stronger because of it, that's been huge, and I'm still working on it, but yeah, to not be too much of a perfectionist. So,
and I guess just going off of what you're saying, one thing that for me, just going off of what your experiences, I learned it in football, is you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are.
Yeah, that's good.
Just trying to learn that. I'm still learning it, but just trying to learn that keeps me even keel. During a football, if a play goes wrong, or if you miss your assignment, or maybe for you if the ball goes out, or you don't get a call your way, it's never that bad. But then also when the accolades come, you're like, nah, it's never that good either. And so that's kind of what keeps me, that good balance. I'm still trying to learn.
No, that's awesome.
Because sometimes you try to go too high, and be like, listen to what they say, but like, nah, you're not that good. But then also when the times come that the negativity or sometimes the self-doubt, you'd be like, you got to remind yourself that it's never that bad either.
Yeah, so it's true.
That's kind of what keeps me, and I'm still trying to learn how to be.
That's an awesome way to think about it.
Yeah. If you could spend a day with someone dead or alive to pick their brains, who would it be?
Ooh, I probably would choose Grandma Miley, just because I met her when I was really young, so I can't really remember, but that's my dad's mom. But there's been a lot of moments in my life where he would say, you remind me of her, like in a moment. And I've always been like, I want to hang out with my grandma. Like, I'm excited for our reunion in heaven with all her bright colored clothes and her dancing or whatever. I'm excited for that.
What's special about the place you grew up?
What's special is probably just I think the expectations, like the good expectations, like everyone there at like Lone Peak and also just like in Highland, like everyone's kind of a member. And so I feel like I grew a ton spiritually through like my tennis experiences too, but also like at home, we were taught always to like live what you say. Like that's more important than maybe just saying it all the time. And so I think it was really important to kind of be in that community where maybe we didn't have a ton of Polynesians that we were around, but that were really similar, but kind of just show that the good that Polynesian people can bring to the community, kind of be like examples, right, but still learn from the people around you.
What have you only recently formed an opinion about?
I have only recently learned opinion about probably like master's programs, like because I've always wanted to do a lot of school, but like being in school, you're kind of like, I'm over it, like 4 or 5 years is enough.
Right.
And now kind of looking into a master's program, it's like the different tests you have to take and like the process is crazy, but exciting. So I'm excited, I guess, good opinion about it, but I'm excited.
What's the luckiest thing that's happened to you?
Wow. Luckiest thing that's happened to me is probably going to BYU Hawaii, I would say, because if I hadn't had gone to BYU Hawaii, then I don't think I'd be at BYU, because Dave Porter was my coach at BYU Hawaii, and his son is the assistant coach at BYU.
Oh, nice.
Tennis. And so...
Is it Dylan or no?
Yeah, Dylan.
Oh, yeah. I know Dylan. He's a couple years older than me.
So that connection has been awesome, and just I never thought I'd go to Hawaii even, and just the people I met there, and having that path and being able to understand different cultures more, and like my tennis game, and like spiritually going to church school there, and then getting the experience of going to the U that didn't have that like church presence where like you prayed before you started a class. All like I think really contributed and helped to make me who I am today. And so that probably would be my like greatest blessing and lucky moment of my life.
What song would guarantee to make you dance?
I would say anything Sammy J. Nice. I love Sammy J. I went to his concert recently and it was so fun. But I can't think of a particular song, but just anything Sammy J.
What could you give a 40-minute presentation on with no preparation?
40-minute preparation? No preparation. I probably would talk about that's tough. I probably would talk about how everyone needs to visit Hawaii, and because it's just an awesome experience. Like everyone just needs to take a vacation there.
Nice. What hobby would you get into if time and money weren't an issue?
I probably would want to travel the world.
What's the number one on your list?
Yeah. Number one would probably be New Zealand. I think it'd be really cool to go there.
Nice.
Yeah.
When people come to you for help, what do they usually need help with?
Usually when people come to me, they want like advice or just kind of want to talk things out, because I just listen and then they can like bounce ideas off of me. And so I'm happy that I can be there for people.
What's something you think everyone should do at least once in their life?
Man, everyone should... I would say Hawaii, like go to Hawaii and just, and have a good relationship with their family. I think that's...
Did you feel the Aloha spirit when you were there? Is
yes.
that kind of like basically what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Going to Hawaii and just feeling that?
For sure. Like just the love for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What helps you live in the moment?
What helps me live in the moment is probably I keep a journal, and so I like to kind of record things that happen. And so when you kind of see the good and negative, but being able to kind of refer to that helps me kind of understand, like, if it was a really bad day, like, okay, it was just that day, and it's still a new day, and kind of
It's perspective, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which of your scars has the best story behind it?
Ooh. I have a scar on my knee when I was in Kuwait. Actually, when I was 7, I was playing with a girl in our apartment that we were living at, and we were downstairs in the workout room. I don't know why, and her brother was like running on the treadmill, and it was on full speed, and so we were both just watching it because he wasn't on it anymore, and I think she pushed me onto it, and so it like took off a layer of skin like on my knee, and I was traumatized. But I think she was trying to help me to like run on it, I think was her mindset. But I remember I was crying so much, and my mom helped me out in that situation. But yeah, I still have it, and it's a good memory of to always be careful around the treadmills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Village Made podcast. So if you could give back to your village, what would you do, or how would you do it?
I would probably just, I don't feel like anyone really needs a lot of money in the area that I grew up in, but I think just a perspective of at Lone Peak, a lot of people struggled with mental issues like depression, and my junior year we had a lot of suicides actually, which was really sad. And so I think if I could give back, I just would want to remind kids that they're doing better than they think they are, and that there's so much like to live for, and life can be so great. And yes, there'll be dark times, but the sun always comes out. So
Amen. Wow. That was deep. Well, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's been cool, trying to
I know, this has
get
been
this
awesome.
to you. But
yeah,
thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Village Made podcast. From my village to yours. We'll see you later.